We are supposed to finish at 6. That's in 10 minutes. Quarter past. First of all, I must say that I don't think Wali, well, you may correct me here, I don't think we ever said this to Aziz, that we want to thank him most sincerely for bringing to us and introducing us to Anjana. I don't think we ever said that. But that's a great gift that he brought to all of us. And indeed, what Amina said is entirely correct. And Anjana, thanks a lot for the great care you took of Aziz as he lay in bed during his final months. It was very touching, very sad, but very moving. With all of the things that Aziz would say jocularly to you, it was very, very good that you were around at that time. I don't know if there was somebody else, I don't know what they would have done and behaved in the magnificent manner in which you did during the last days of Aziz's life. But thanks a lot, Anjana, for all of that. The last month, September, it was a meeting of the religious leaders in Cape Town who constitute the Interfaith Forum of South Africa. And one of the things they said was that they would not, as our religious leaders, stand by while the country continues on a downward spiral. And they took a decision then to convene, to organize a convention to meet and discuss these challenges facing our country and to suggest solutions. And they said the solutions to our challenges lie with the citizens of this country. South Africa is our nation, and it is our responsibility as communities. And they said we have what it takes within us to work together to reconfigure the future of this country. They've met, as I'm sure everybody would have seen in the media. That convention has just taken place on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this week. And the Bishop Malusi Mpumlwana, who was the chairperson of the Interfaith Forum, General Secretary of South African Council of Churches, he said, as they met, that as we gather here, let us remember that the power for change resides within us, and together we shall harness our collective wisdom and passion to chart a transformative path for our beloved country. And so the two themes of the convention were our country, our responsibility. That was one of them. The other was from awareness to action. They invited me, the interfaith leaders, they invited me to attend the conference as an observer, the convention. And I was rather pleased that I got the invitation because I thought it would give me a chance to listen to people that I don't normally listen to. because these were people organized by the Interfaith Forum, and therefore drawn from all of the various faiths in our country, the Christians and the Judaic people and Muslims and everybody, the independent African churches, full cross-section of God, including a lot of the community-based organizations. I'm saying I was very glad I was there because normally it's not the section echelon of our country that normally one has the privilege to listen to hear their views, understand their passions, their feelings. And they spoke. I attended the meeting on Monday. I couldn't attend the meeting the following day, Tuesday. I attended the third day also. And essentially what they were saying is people, is representatives from all over the country, from all of the different faiths, from all of the society, in Christ. Saying wherever you see crisis, numbers of people who are unemployed continue to increase. People who are poor continue to increase. He talked about a woman who killed her 3 children and herself because they had no food. And spoke across the board and said they fear to get out of their houses at night because of the levels of crime. And they don't trust government. I listened to one of the delegates there who spoke out very passionately and said, we must be very honest in what we want to say because of the problems that we face. And talked about something I was not sensitive to, the levels of mental health, mental ill health among young people. And they were saying so much so that, so I sat there listening to all this and really felt rather sad. I remembered for some reason that we were going to have this meeting because they were saying the ANC has betrayed us. The ANC has betrayed our hopes. Enough is enough. I'm saying I felt rather sad because somehow I remember I thought about this meeting and thought here is, we are going to say farewell to Aziz, who never betrayed anybody. Very ANC to the bone. But Aziz would have taken that accusation to heart. He would have said it's part of what he did wrongly, which contributed to that conclusion which was communicated by those people. They were saying the ANC has betrayed them. Enough is enough. Aziz was a professional revolutionary for many of his years. And by that I mean somebody who was dedicated 24 hours of the day to ensuring the success of these revolutionary objectives, which had to do with a better life for our people, which had to do with the liberation of our people from apartheid oppression. And therefore the things in which he engaged, very concentrated on this matter, how we make change the lives of our people for the better. I was very, very sorry that the recorded message by Professor Vili Esterese was cut short but I don't know why. Because indeed it would have been very good to listen, as Garth was saying, it would have been very good to listen to the rest of what Professor Esther said. Because as Vili was saying, that they started engaging with Aziz and others, Tony True. In England, I joined them later. This group of Afrikaners, a delegation led by Aziz, engaged. Vili talked there about one of the high points of that engagement when he was given a message by the apartheid regime that he could tell us that the regime was now ready to meet with the ANC and made the arrangements so that we met them. We were prepared for that. And the reason we were prepared for it was because during the course of those discussions, one of these Afrikaners gave us a report. They used to tell us what was happening at home and all that. And he said that there had been a meeting of the cabinet and the Minister of Finance had said apartheid was no longer affordable. At the end of that meeting, as we normally would do when they had left, we would meet. And Aziz said, but President, the Comrade Thabo, did you hear this? They say that a report was given to cabinet to say apartheid is no longer affordable. And then we decided that, well, in which case, the logical consequence of that is that they will then say, let us negotiate. So indeed, when Vili came and said, indeed, they say, let's negotiate, we were not surprised. But I'm talking about that Aziz involved in this work as a professional revolutionary. His task to make sure that we did everything possible to bring closer the day when people will be liberated from oppression. I can talk of many, many other things that Aziz did. In the negotiations with the government delegation, one of the things we agreed was that we agreed on the release of political prisoners and banning of organizations, all these things, that they should indicate to us well ahead of time when Madiba would be released. After we'd agreed it was going to be released, the day on which it would be released. Fine, and then they would send a message to me so that we would prepare for it properly. So then I had to go to England at that particular point for another meeting with Villiers Therese and the others. What had happened was that we had agreed on some phrase, some sentence that would come from these Afrikaners here at home from government to indicate when Madiba would be released and the day. So I told Zanele that as I was leaving for London, that they will call and may very well say the following. If they do, please pass on the message to Aziz in London. Who would give it to me, sure. So indeed, one day, as we're in London, a very, very good person who stayed with Aziz at the time, and Davis, unfortunately very late now, she sends Aziz a message and passes on this message. So Aziz tells me that Anne has sent a phone to say the following. So I said, okay, well, thanks Aziz. It took me a day, a full day, to remember that was the code for the release of Nelson Mandela. Zanella kept the message for a few days because it was nonsensical. The rain will rain on Thursday. So what? And so when you get to Anne in London, she treated it the same way. So what? So it gets to me also, I didn't quite understand until a day later. It was in fact, I realized what it meant. the day before Madiba was released. So we panicked, and because we wanted to write the statement, what was Madiba going to say? But it was too late. In that instance, Aziz couldn't help. He couldn't help. We were very late. And Madiba did make the statement that he did. We were not too happy with parts of it. But I'm talking here about Comrade, who was a professional revolutionary. And when we come to government and what was said about the work that he was doing in foreign affairs, very correct, and the engagements we had. We had, in 2002, I think it was, we even had a meeting with at the Spear farm in the Eastern Cape, wine farm. You remember that? Trevor might remember that. When Aziz had organized that there would be representatives of the Israeli community and representatives of the Palestinians would come together and we'd sit them, we sat with them at the Spear farm, I think it was 2002, to discuss the resolution of this problem. And brought in all sorts of elements. When there were military matters that had to be brought in, we brought in the National Defense Force. Intelligence people came in to try and say to them, fundamental to this thing is the right of the Palestinian people. This must be addressed, and all of the Palestinians stated all of that. Otherwise, there is no solution. And such problems as the Jewish people might have had, let's address them. In the end, it didn't work. But it was a signal of Aziz's in very serious intent that the problem of this kind must be solved, and that we had a role to play in it. This is a professional revolutionary who lived up to his task, but as I say, of the liberation of our people. But yesterday and on Monday, I listened to others of our people saying the ANC has betrayed us. And this is the circular that was distributed for that interfaith meeting. Let 1 million voices be heard. I'm mentioning this thing about Aziz also because I think it's unfortunate that he's left us when he has left us. Because what these people organized by the Interfaith Forum said on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday was correct. They were not inventing the fact that you had a mother in the Eastern Cape who murdered her 3 children and killed herself because they'd run out of food. That's a signal of something that's going very wrong. What they were saying, those people are correct. And the challenge we face, those of us who are alive, is how do we respond to that reality? I think that's why, again, I felt very sorry that Aziz left us when he did. Because he was very, very ready to confront that truth, and do something about it as a professional revolutionary. One of the issues they raised, the delegates at the Interfaith Convention, was that they said the government was not helping them, that there was a crisis of governance in the country, and indeed something needed to be done about that. Otherwise, the problems to which they were pointing out would not be solved. In the last few weeks, I discovered a very interesting speech by the current CEO of the Institute of Race Relations. I've quoted the speech before in other meetings, and I'm told some of my colleagues in the ANC are a bit uneasy about that because they say, why am I quoting right-wingers? And what I've understood always in the course of our struggle as a revolutionary, we need to understand everything, absolutely everything about what the right-wingers are doing, what they are thinking, how they sleep, and everything. That's necessary for us to be able to win our victory. Because we're running out of time, I just quote one thing that this CEO of the Institute of Race Relations says, Dr. John Endres. And he said, instead of political currents, a different trend will shape South Africa's outcome over the medium term. This is the receding power of the state, its loss of authority and credibility, its inability to translate plans into action, and the growing disconnect between the ruling elites and those they govern. And he said this process will play out over a period of years, but is already well underway. And I think this assessment is correct. The receding power of the state, its loss of authority, credibility, its inability to translate plans into action, and the growing disconnect between the ruling elites and those they govern. I think Dr. Endres is telling the truth about what is happening in this country. And again, it's something that we have to address. Because, and he says, Dr. Endres, in the end, that what this process is going to lead to in the end is that you will have capital and civil society running the country, and the democratic state will have disappeared. And for the democratic state to disappear means the overwhelming majority of our people, the poor, lose hope. Because capital and that civil society are not going to help them. So this problem that is raised by that interfaith forum, which is reflected again by what Endres says, the receding power of the state. Again, you had people like Nkosazana, Aziz, Ayanda Nzaluba, who would want to respond to that because they have actual experience. They are the ones who set up, reconstituted the Foreign Affairs Department, later DERCO. So they were practically involved in the process of the construction of the democratic state. The one that Endres says correctly now is receding. And therefore, we're losing that possibility for the state to act in the interest of these millions and millions of our people who are poor and disempowered. But again, Aziz is gone. It would have been very, very useful as an activist to play a role in that process of the reconstruction of the democratic state. I'm rushing somewhat about all of this because that statement made by these people to say the ANC has betrayed them was incorrect. But as an explanation that the ANC has to make about what has been happening in this country. And one of these things is indeed, has been, quite correctly, the weakening of the ANC. The ANC itself has spoken about this. There's a famous report of 2017 of the ANC, delivered by the then Secretary General. It was called a diagnostic report. Let me again read just one part of what that report said. It said the ANC faces declining fortunes, internal squabbles, money politics, corruption, and poor performance in government all conspire to undermine its legitimacy in the eyes of the broader public. Some progressive formations and individuals who historically have been part of the broad front of forces for change are challenging the movement on important current issues, particularly corruption. And that report had said the primary mission of the ANC is to serve the people of South Africa, and the ANC exists for the people of South Africa. It is therefore the historic mission of the ANC to build a humane and caring society. So, the ANC, realizing that problem, the one indicated in that diagnostic report, decided that the ANC needs to renew itself. It said at its conference in 2017 that the ANC must renew itself for its very survival. The fact of the matter, though, is that we did not do that. We did not renew the ANC following that conference resolution of 2017. That resolution has been repeated by the conference of 2022 to renew the ANC. We're now in October. That was 10 months ago that that resolution was renewed. Nothing has happened to renew the ANC. So what was diagnosed in 2017 we're not attending to. Again, I'm mentioning this because, again, unfortunately, we've lost Aziz. Because again, in terms of that renewal of the ANC, I think we would want him to be there. So that becomes part of the people who define what this ANC should look like. Not it what was described, and not as it was described in that diagnostic report. Aziz is gone, but he's left us, I think he's left us with a task. A task in reality, in substance, to respond in full to all of these things that were said over early this week by these thousands of our people who met at the Interfaith Convention, to respond to all of those things. Even one of them stood up and said one of the things he can't understand, because he's got a child at university. Why has been the distribution of the NSFAS grants has been privatized? Why have we hired private companies to distribute this NSFAS bursaries, which are now charging these children to pay out of those bursaries to pay these distributors? He said he can't understand it. Well, I can't either. But as we say farewell at Comrade Aziz, I think all of us would want to make this commitment that we've heard our people, because indeed, as that diagnostic report says, the ANC exists to serve the people. We've heard our people. And what we will try to do is to emulate the example that you set. Thank you very much, Comrade Aziz, and good luck. Thank you.
Another one, please.